What's up, everyone? I'm Jack Taylor, and this is Talkin Sports with my dad.
And I'm the dad. I'm Jeff Taylor. Now, on this show, we talk sports, but getting old can be tough. Aches and pains. I need glasses of water. I need hearing aids, glasses to read in front of me. One bright spot, however, I'm not the dumb kid.
Are you saying that I'm the dumb kid?
No, not at all.
You sure? It sounds like you're implying that, okay?
Absolutely not.
All right.
So, on today's show, we're going to debate, is greatness measured by championships, the GOAT quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, and what sport, actually, which has the best athletes.
Okay, all right. Then we're also going to break down who the biggest quarterback draft bust is in NFL history, talk a little bit about soccer's popularity in the United States and where it's at, and then discuss why the NFL doesn't have full-time referees.
That's a good one.
It is. All right, now, to get started, what do these guys have in common? Steve Nash, Charles Barkley, Dan Marino, Ken Griffey Jr.
I didn't know it until you said Dan Marino.
Yeah.
All great players.
Yep.
Never won championships.
Absolutely. It brings up a really good discussion. Should we measure greatness by championships? Take it away.
You know me, I say yes.
Yeah.
And that's what I base every argument on
Yep.
is however many championships you get. We did. Peyton Manning, Eli Manning,
Yeah.
both have 2 championships.
Yeah.
They're equally great.
Yeah.
But you could argue that Peyton, obviously had better stats and everything like that. But for me, I think at the end of the day, fans, cities, they want their championships. At the end of the day, I don't think anybody cares unless you're the all-time greatest in terms of stats. I don't think anybody cares. They just want to see wins, and they want to see those banners hanging from the rafters.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that, but I think especially, when you talk about, it depends on the sport, right? I think in the NBA that there's obviously these guys we talk about, some of them that are really, really great, some players that are really great, some teams that are really great that didn't have championships. We talked about like the Golden State Warriors, their perfect season, except not having that championship there at the end. Does that besmirch what they did?
Right.
I think in the NFL as well. I think for fan bases in general, I think fan bases have such short memory spans where you get that championship and then boom, the next year we won another one. You just had one.
Right.
But for the fans, fans of teams that haven't had one in forever, they're obviously clamoring a lot more for that championship when they do get it. I think it depends upon how you go about it too. You see teams, go all in for one player, one guy for, 1 year.
Sure.
You look at the 49 or the Rams, you look at the Buccaneers, they did that to get one championship and then you lose it all. Same with, the Lakers, when they get their championship and then they lose everything going after that,
right.
And so then they have that team legacy taken out. But it creates a really interesting question is, would you rather, make the Super Bowl, win the NBA championship, win the World Series 1 year, and then not get back for another 10 years? Or would you have 15 years of almost making it every year, being good consistently, and then not getting there?
So back in the day, late 90s, Dan Marino actually owned a NASCAR team.
Yeah.
And I had the chance to talk to him in Daytona.
Yeah.
And I said, specifically,
Yeah.
one of the greatest to ever play the game.
Yeah.
You don't have a ring.
Yeah.
Does that haunt you?
Yeah.
And his exact answer was, I did what I did on the field. I left everything out there. I consider myself to be one of the greatest, and I'm happy where I'm at. But in today's world, as you talk about GOATs, you talk about NFL quarterbacks, his name doesn't even come up. And he was one of the best to sling it around the field.
It was.
And so, but I've always argued at the end of the day, when you talk greatness and getting things accomplished, championships matter.
It's obviously what you seek and you go after, but I think that too much weight is put on them in terms of having these historical conversations, at least from an analytical standpoint. The fan bases
about the player
can say what they want, and then I think fan bases also uses that crutches, and owners use that as a crutch, saying, "Well, we got a championship back then. We don't need to get. It takes some time." Well,
because the Dolphins didn't win.
Yeah.
Dan Marino didn't win. It was the Dolphins didn't win.
Right.
So how can you put it on that one person?
Exactly.
I get it.
Absolutely.
Good talk. All right, Jack. Time for how they did it back in my day. And this is an age-old question and one that younger people and older folks like me probably disagree upon.
All right.
Do you run to set up the pass, or do you pass to set up the run?
All right, I'll go off the rip. I think you have to run to set up the pass. I think for the longest time, the NFL started to get away from that. College football started to get away from that. And I think if you want to be just a high-powered passing offense, sure, that's fine. But you have to then accept that the run game is going to falter away. There's a reason why running was established first in the NFL.
Right.
And then passing came so much later on. It was it was an alien concept when it was introduced. And I think that you see in the teams that make it work, they either say, we're not even going to worry about the run, we're going to stack all pass blocking offensive linemen, pocket passers, wide receivers that can create separation, go down the field. But I think more often than not, you see, like with the Philadelphia Eagles this last year.
Right.
Saquon Barkley did everything for that team and
Right.
allowed to the point where A.J. Brown could sit on the sideline reading a book when he didn't have to be out there on the field, going
Right.
haywire. And the Eagles were so close to the mark every year, but the running game wasn't there. And then when they got there, they were able to make it and win the Super Bowl. You could say for the Chiefs, who've had high-powered offenses, their running backs are really no-name guys, but that's not the case. They've been able to perform really well because they have a system set up for it.
Right, and I'm gonna go with the Baltimore Ravens.
Yeah.
You brought Derrick Henry in for a reason.
Yeah.
And you didn't do it.
And they failed for it.
They failed because of it. You had the run game right there to set up Lamar,
Yeah.
who can run. Don't get me wrong, I get it.
And can throw
And
really
he can
well.
throw. But John Harbaugh made the worst mistake
Yeah.
of not grasping that weapon and going with him
Yeah.
and setting up the rest of the. And that's why, Lamar's a great quarterback. I don't think he'll ever be considered a great passer. In the history of the game, I just don't think he will be. I think he'll be always known for his run. But I don't know who they were playing. I think it was the Steelers, and they went for 2.
Yeah.
The Ravens did to win the game.
Yeah.
And you didn't have Derrick Henry in the game.
No, they didn't.
Well, like what are you doing? And so that could have easily set up passes. It could have done anything. So running game, I think, yes, running game has to set up the pass.
I mean, I think you've seen other opportunities with the Seattle Seahawks against the Patriots in the Super Bowl. You
Right.
had the ball at the goal line.
What are you
Marshawn
doing?
Lynch,
Right, exactly.
Don't throw the ball, run it. I think with Lamar and the Ravens and the Eagles and Saquon, it was two sides of the same coin. You saw where it was successful.
It's successful.
And even when the Eagles have A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, great wide receivers, whereas the Ravens have no-name guys every single year.
Right.
And the reason why they're not able to make it work is because they try to rely on those no-name guys.
Right.
So, yeah, I think you have to run the ball to set up the pass and set up the play action, especially when you have a mobile quarterback like Lamar. It makes complete sense.
It's a good answer. And I like to say it's old school brand football.
It absolutely is, but there's a reason why, right?
Right, exactly.
And if you're going to pass, just be a passing offense.
Right.
That's
Figure
all
it out.
takes. Yeah.
Figure it out.
All right, Dad, let's get into, of course, another debate that we always like to do, the greatest of all the debates. This is GOAT Talk with Dad.
Now, this season, we're making our picks for who is the GOAT quarterback of every NFL team. Today, we're going to go up to the frozen tundra.
Wow.
Not Lambeau Field, though. That's what
Yeah.
we think. We're going to go up north, though, the Minnesota Vikings.
Yep. All right. Now you have a lot of good choices here. You have Dante Culpepper, Fran Tarkenton, Randall Cunningham, Brett Favre, Joe Kapp. You go a wide range of guys. But for me, I think there is one obvious answer, but you can go off the top.
I'm going to go Fran Tarkenton. Just in terms of the history, and I think putting the Vikings on the map, along with, he had a great defense in the Purple People Eaters,
Yeah.
but I think in terms of Fran Tarkenton and that Sammy Ball, pocket quarterback,
Yep.
what the true NFL quarterback was back in the day,
Yeah.
I've got to go with him. When I worked in Richmond, I worked with his cousin, a
Yeah.
guy named Chip Tarkenton, and we would always talk about Fran and what he meant to the Minnesota Vikings and the city itself. Just that old school, historical, just good guy that they built a franchise around, if you ask me. So I would go with Fran.
Yeah, I think you have to put it as Fran for one specific reason. You talk about Dante Culpepper and the longevity that he had. You talk about, though, Brett Favre, Randall Cunningham, and the thing that sticks out is
Brett Favre shouldn't even be in the conversation.
But you have to put him in there
I
because
know.
of the success he had when he was with the organization, especially to come with the way he went out for the Jets and then to come back and have a career renaissance
Right.
with the Vikings. But I think the different conversations you have with those guys is their success with other organizations as well. When you talk about Randall Cunningham
Yeah.
and Brett Favre, obviously with the Packers and with the Eagles. So I think that for Fran, it's consistent level of success with the Vikings and the fact that to play in that time of day, and it says more about his play than it does about the Minnesota Viking quarterback history,
Right.
and still be in the conversation amongst Vikings fans, both young and old,
Right.
to know who Fran Tarkenton is,
Right.
to know that he was a couple weird plays away from glory every single time that he had the chance to do so. So I think for me, that makes it the clear-cut answer is that it's Fran Tarkenton. I think, though, the better question is, or the bigger question is that who will be their greatest of all time, because I don't think they necessarily have seen it yet. I think they've been trying. They've had a couple different chances over the years, and I think that they've been still trying to stick to get that level of guys that they had back in, especially with the wide receiver group that they have.
Yep.
They should have the ability to bring someone in there. They should bring someone in there.
Right.
And, maybe they hope J.J.
McCarthy
comes off the bench and is that guy. I don't see it, but we'll see what happens.
And I can wrap it up with this. When we talk about Fran Tarkenton, too, he didn't play in a dome.
No, he did not.
He played in, all the elements, whether it was in, it was in Minnesota, whether it was Green
And
Bay.
no Randy Moss.
Right. There were no domes.
Yep.
So the man, was throwing the ball around the yard with that. And
Yep.
and when it gets that cold,
Yeah.
what that ball gets like and how
a
hard
lot
it
harder
is.
to throw the
So
ball.
we'll go with Fran Tarkenton.
Yep.
All right.
It works.
All right, Jack. We all know that NFL players are incredible athletes. NBA players are tall, they're strong, have amazing ball handling skills. I don't. And it's often argued that the hardest thing to do in sports is to hit a baseball.
All right, we'll see. I think I know where this is going.
All right.
We're going to talk about what sport has the best athletes. I think, for real, it's the NFL. And I know it seems like we have an NFL bias on the show, but I promise we don't. But when you just look at the matter of fact of the different ways that they can go about it, you can have NFL players. I go to Julius Peppers, right? He was playing for Chapel Hill on the football team and the basketball team,
right,
going to the Final Four, and made a Super Bowl as well. He had the ability to do all that, and we can talk about how many times NFL players get drafted to the MLB.
Right.
Kyler Murray, Russell Wilson, these guys, you can go back to Deion Sanders, Bo Jackson. I think they choose to play football.
Right.
And I think these athletes that can play basketball, football, track and field, baseball, they choose to play in the NFL. And I don't necessarily think, out of a certain extenuating circumstances, that it would be able to translate from MLB to the NFL or from the NBA to the NFL.
I'm going to give you the answer as I thought about this last night as I was looking over what we were going to do on the show. I'll talk to your mom.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And I'm going to give you the mom answer.
All right.
She said,
she's a doctor. So yeah.
She said basketball.
Interesting.
And I said, okay, why? And we're going off the rails here with mom, but she was like, listen, they don't get a break.
They don't.
It's up
They
and
absolutely
down.
don't.
It's up and down. It's up and down. They take a timeout. There's a TV timeout. Football players go back to the huddle.
Yeah.
Football players on your offense, the defense is out there, you're sitting on the bench.
Yeah.
But it also, what do you mean by the best athletes? Because I know some defensive linemen who may not be in the best,
this is fair.
best shape, if you know what I get.
Fair.
So I got it, and I kind of go with her in terms of, I think when you talk about basketball, it's all nonstop.
This is true.
Even soccer, they get the ball down the pitch a little bit, and you can breathe while you're back here. Baseball, you sit the half inning. But I think between football and basketball, there's a push for both.
I think we took the conversation a different way, though, because like you said, it is a much broader question. It's not necessarily who can play the most other sports. Is it who's the most skilled athlete? Because for me, and we didn't talk about it, I think it's hockey players. Hockey players the same way. They have to go constantly. It's not a big rink, mind you, but it's about, I'd say, the same size as a basketball court, if not a little bit bigger.
Watching some of the practices for our minor league team,
Their hand-eye coordination has to be on one the entire time. Their level of awareness, their ability to move with such quick speeds, forward, backwards, get hit into the board. It's just as physical as football, just as much flying around as basketball. The hand-eye coordination of baseball and golf is there. For me, I'd say the best athletes all around are hockey players.
I could see that, yes.
It's intense, and I don't think you can't be an NFL player, put a pair of skates on, and be a good hockey player, but I bet they could come off and they could play pretty good football.
Listen, we've been on ice skates.
Not good.
It's not happening.
Not good, and we're not even good football players, so... All right, Dad, what's cringier than taking a quarterback in the NFL draft only to watch that player flame out and have a lousy career?
I'd say not so much.
Yeah.
So that must make this the cringiest thing ever.
Absolutely. This is the question we got on social media from our viewer, Thomas, who asked, who is the biggest NFL draft bust specifically at quarterback? There's a wide range of choices from these past few years to decades beforehand. We start, Ryan Leaf, Trey Lance, Zach Wilson, Mac Jones. There's a lot from this current era, right? You go then Jeff George, Jamarcus Russell, Robert Griffin III, Bryce Young. We'll see about that one. Tim Couch. There's Jake Locker. There's a lot of different guys.
Jake Locker.
Right?
You had to bring that up, didn't you?
Absolutely, I did.
All right, so real quick.
Yeah.
And I just want to do it again because it's fun.
Yeah.
And listen, your mom knows sports.
Okay, yeah, she does.
So last night we were going over the show.
Want to talk about it, right?
We were at the dinner table.
Yeah.
Actually, we're out.
All right.
But anyway, we were talking, and who was the biggest NFL bust at quarterback? She did this, and I'm like, what?
Johnny Manziel.
And she goes, Johnny Manziel. I'm like,
okay.
What?
All right, no, that's a good one.
Bring it, Mom.
Yeah.
So, he's right up there to me. I'm going to go Jamarcus Russell.
Yeah.
I think he played a year, maybe?
Yeah, not great.
With the Raiders?
Not great at all.
Listen, coming out of LSU, he was the man.
Yeah.
And I just think that when you talk about that, if you look at, Justin Fields and Zach Wilson and Mac Jones and Trey Lance, all of them right now, I still think
give him time.
It's still out there.
Yeah.
And what constitute a bust, because I could talk personally about Marcus Mariota.
Yeah.
In terms of he put the Titans back on the map.
Yeah.
But he hasn't done a whole lot since then, but he does what he's asked to do.
Yeah.
And he does it with, the right attitude.
Yeah.
So, but for me, it's Jamarcus Russell.
I think that's an interesting question when you ask what constitutes a bust, right?
Right, exactly.
When were they picked, right? What time of the draft were they
Right.
picked? What was the organization like at the time frame? The problem with quarterbacks is you're asking them more often than not, if they're the number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pick,
To rescue the team.
to go to the worst team out there. You know, Cam Newton talked about it, especially when he was talking about some certain quarterbacks. They got to go to the worst team out there
Right.
and try to make them, flip them on their head. Even if, some circumstances, it is a matter of, okay, it's just not the right fit at quarterback, and the rest of the team is set up like Jaden Daniels, right?
Right.
Jaden Daniels comes in, they have everything else set up the way it needs to be, so they go off with it. Joe Burrow the same way with the Bengals, and so I think the other thing about it is the patience that fans and teams have, because with guys like Zach Wilson, with Justin Fields, these kind of RG3, even these fans were clamoring, begging for success, and so just because they didn't get to that point, that's where they are labeled as a bust.
And I think generation-wise, too, when we talk about it from a generational viewpoint, a lot of younger people nowadays want things quick. Fans want to see things immediately. They want to see that turnaround from point A to point B. So when Jaden Daniels does what he does, everybody now is going to expect Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders, all those guys to come in, the upcoming year and set the world on fire. It just doesn't happen.
Absolutely. And that's what you get a lot of the times with these, quarterbacks picked at 1 or 2. They're both expected to do great. Marcus Mariota, Jameis Winston drafted the same time frame, both expected to do really well. You look at the draft with Zach Wilson, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, all drafted up there really, really high. All needed. Mac Jones was coming in have to try to replace Tom Brady. Right. He had the biggest thing around him. And I think another thing that hurts them is the fact of what they're given in terms of coverage and protection by the NFL media.
Got it.
So that's where I think, it does hurt them a lot. But I think Jamarcus Russell, he had the physicality. He had all the different off-the-field stuff to say, all right, I can be this. Just didn't pan out.
Yep. All right, let's do one more. I had to walk to school uphill both ways.
All right.
So back in my day when I was walking to school in the snow both ways.
What snow?
That's actually Granddad. No, that's Granddad.
Okay.
Soccer in the U.S. wasn't much of a thing, but now it's grown. A lot of fans, maybe not as much back then, but still, is it a major sport like football and basketball and all that? So why hasn't soccer blown up in the U.S.? And will it ever?
I disagree. I think it has blown up. I think the biggest issue with it, and it's gotten a little bit better, is just coverage and airtime.
Agreed.
Right? You weren't able to watch really any of these unless it was a random one on ESPN Plus or maybe Fox Sports 1. I think Apple TV is allowed for you to have a lot more coverage, but it's also another place where it's only able to be viewed on Apple TV. You can't get it on the major networks. Because the fan bases are there. Charlotte
FC. I was going to mention that's our hometown where we're at. That place, Bank of America Stadium.
But even Nashville.
Is rocking.
You look at Nashville, you look at Seattle, you look at places where they have big NFL markets, and their teams that are really impactful do really, really well. So I think it's more of a matter of just they aren't getting the TV coverage that they deserve because they're not making deals.
And you got to get to know the stars.
Yes, that's true.
You got to get to know who's playing and stuff like that. And that gets back, though, to coverage and what things do. But, it's great for the city of Charlotte to see this team be on fire like they are and growing the way they are. I blame Ted Lasso. I'm just going to say that. What a great show. And, I'm not much of a soccer fan, but I love that show and, the FC, and we've got, some minor league stuff. So I think it is. And it's really weird because back in my day, you could go to the YMCA on a Saturday morning and there was, just all the soccer fields were covered. Then there was a little bit of a dip. But now near our house, there's a YMCA, and on Saturday mornings, every field out there is filled with kids playing soccer. It's something everybody can do.
It is. It's definitely catching up in popularity, but I do think the fact of the matter of players going to different leagues, the international break, getting called up, it does hurt it a little bit, but that's where the more coverage you get can only benefit you.
And to see those the international clubs come to places like Charlotte and watch all the fans show up here, that's impressive.
Absolutely. All right, Dad, not to be harsh, but you're ruining my life.
Again?
Yes.
What are you talking about?
Look at today, you're not really ruining my life, but you know what is, though?
What?
NFL officials.
All right.
I can't take the bad calls, the tic-tac penalties, the pass interference, or the roughing the quarterback when the ball is 25 yards down the other field, especially in the NFL. It drives me insane.
I get it. So let me ask you this. Should the NFL make referees full-time employees?
Absolutely. I think the fact of the matter that people probably don't know that they're not full-time employees is an issue in and of itself because you're expecting that modicum of professionalism from the NFL to say, okay, these are our employees. We take full-time responsibility for them. And they're playing and operating a game where everybody else is full time. But the fact of the matter is, you looked at the Super Bowl, and there were a couple of refs from Charlotte that were high school teachers or that were, accountants or what have you, and then they're going and refereeing the biggest game in your year.
Agreed.
So I think, and not only that, you go even further. They have to be there for preseason. They have to be there for team scrimmages. They have to be there in the offseason for practices. You can't have a full scrimmage without an NFL-regulated referee there on your practice field. So the fact that they're not paying them to be full-time employees is just, it's asinine.
I agree with that. I think that in the realm of things, as you think about all the fans who put their money into this team and buying, going to the games and buying all the apparel, and you've got these owners putting in money to build stadiums, and these guys on the field leaving everything they have out on the field to come down to a call that, who knows why.
Yeah.
Because they don't really have full-time officials that are putting their heart and soul into it. And maybe they are.
I said, don't get me wrong, I bet you they do.
But, well, yeah, and I get it. But, you could even take it a step further. Should there be an age limit on NFL refs? Because, I've seen football officials out there, whether it's college or NFL, the guys are quite old. And you've got the best athletes in the world. And if you've got a sideline judge who has to stick with Calvin Ridley, going downfield, he's 30 yards behind the play.
Yeah.
How's he making a good call? And if the back judge is in the back corner having to run across and get there, there's just so much complexity, and that game is so intense, and every play matters.
Yeah.
You need to have the refs.
I agree, and I think you make an interesting point about the age limit, and that does strike up a different conversation. But at the end of the day, they need to be full-time employees. It makes no sense that they're not. And I'd be interested to see what it's like for NBA, MLB, and NHL, what their protocol is for their referees. It's something we should look up and talk about as well.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Good job. Hey, that's Talkin Sports with my dad for today.
Thanks for joining us. And again, if you have any topics you want us to debate, please hit us up on social media. And Dad, even though I told you, you're ruining my life, like a lot of times over the years, I never really meant it.
I know. Hey, we'll see you next time right here.